I want to move forward with the Beep introduction presentation. So here maybe a familiar picture of the two main components of the platform, which is the software, the app on the left-hand side, which is a web app, we call it. It works on any internet-connected device and adapts itself to the screen size and whether it is a touch device or not. And then on the right-hand side, you see what we call the measurement system for the beehive, the Beep base, which is placed under the hive. It has a weight sensor and it has a temperature sensor and it has a microphone. Then maybe nice to mention a few key statistics regarding the Beep platform. At the moment, there are over 25,000 hives registered by beekeepers on the platform to keep notes, to collect sensor data, maybe to connect their own systems to the platform and to track those data. There are over 2,000 active accounts. There are many more accounts created for people that are, I guess, just curious and want to check it out. But over 2,000 accounts are really active. 1,500 devices are connected. This may be Beep devices, but it may also be other devices. And then just to give you an indication, there are about 4,300 sensor writes. Snippets of data that are sent to the server from a device per hour. So you can already tell from that that is a very large amount and it adds up very quickly. So just to give you an impression, what keeps us busy right now is a lot of boxes. So the Beep bases are produced in batches. That makes it manageable for us. That makes it affordable for people that want to use them and buy them. And here you see a picture of some pallets with Beep bases. So the batch size is 350 Beep bases that we normally produce. And these Beep bases are bought through the web shop, and they're also produced for the Be Good project. And a number of you are also have joined the Be Good project or were maybe already in the Be Good project. And on the right-hand side, you see an overview of where the beekeepers are at in this third year in the Be Good project. And again, Zeynep will talk about that more extensively. And to give you an impression of who is behind Beep or who is making it possible, you see here on the top right-hand side, Pim van Gennep, and maybe in the chat you also saw his message with exactly the same photo, I believe, offering you to also answer your questions. So Pim and I together founded Beep to help modernize beekeeping. That's the very short sentence, with digital tools. And there's a great team that we work together with, all part-timers, all specialists. You see here April working on support and communication especially. You see Julia, who is the developer of the app, especially the new Vue JavaScript app. She has fully redeveloped last year and a bit year before. George van Vliet working on the backend specialists. Ezra and Stefan working on the technical side and technical support and work and also technical development. Moving on, a few words about Beep. If you're not so familiar with it, maybe this is a screenshot of what the interface, the main interface, looks like, with information on the hives, the inspections, the data, and the notifications. Sorry for the Dutch in this case, but more languages are available, 9 in total at the moment, and more languages are being added. And you see here one apiary with a bunch of hives, and these hives are all configured individually. Their icons. You can also choose a more extensive view, and I'll not go into details on that. You can just go and play around with it yourself. But what I do want to point out specifically is the picture on the left-hand side. It is a small piece of a larger data structure, and this is at the heart of the Beep platform. It is a standardized, structured list of categories or labels, if you want, database fields related to beekeeping, related to keeping notes, collecting data regarding the colony behavior, the queens, the status of the brood, status of the food, disorders, etc. And yeah, this is what BEEP is built on, or which is a core component of BEEP, and which also makes research possible, because beekeepers can use it to make their own custom logbooks or checklists, but it also allows researchers to pick and select specific fields that they need to collect data for research purposes. And that is also how it's applied in the BeGood research project and other research projects. And on the right-hand side at the bottom, you see an example what that looks like in practice. This is a small part of a checklist with a number of items that you can, where there's a Boolean, yes or no, but also at the bottom there are smileys. So yeah, we've tried to make it as easy as possible to fill out this data, and it is customizable. If this is already too much information for you to keep track, then you can make it even simpler. And we're making constant enhancements on this. Then on to the second part, you could say. The second main part is the measurement system. And you see here the iterative development of the system. First, version 1, which was more of a proof of concept with very cheap sensors with an Arduino, with a wire, so it had to be connected to the main electricity. Then version 2, which was something that we could produce with computer steered equipment to basically like create it from wood in an automatic fashion, still with very cheap sensors as well, but also flexible and easy to prototype. And then having some experience with that, especially also with people here in the group that we've collaborated with version 2 a lot, we've learned a lot, and we decided to go with a very strong steel structure, which is now version 3, with a large, reliable, high quality weight sensor or load cell in the middle with very short wires to the PCB, the computer. I'll not talk about that in detail today, but of course on the website you can find heaps of information. And we are now on version 3.3. So the boxes in our office, the bee bases that are being sent out now for the new season are 3.3. And you see here the base under a hive as well, how it is placed. Of course, the sensors are placed in the hive, and you can also read in our support documentation how that can be done. And then on the right-hand side, you see the latest major improvement in this version 3, apologies, which is a button to operate the PCB. So our preference is to have as little components and as little like extra openings in this box, because it sits outside, of course, in the outdoor. So as little components as possible. But we also found that the version with the magnet was not optimal. So we moved to having this version with a button, and there's a sticker on the box that explains what you can do with the button regarding turning it off and on, but especially also regarding making connection with the BeepBase app to configure it. When using the BeepBase or another device, of course, this generates lots of data. You see here an overview of, I think you can see my pointer on the left-hand side. You see weather information. This weather information comes from a weather service. But if you have a weather station, then you can also use that information. There's temperature on the right-hand side at the top. There's weight on the left-hand side. There's the sound measurement. I noticed in your registration form that many of you filled, many of you asked questions about the sound, and I completely understand. And yeah, already from this graph, you see that there's a lot happening. So the bees are alive. There is a buzz, there is a pattern to it. It seems to have like a daily cycle, but what does it exactly mean? What does it represent? And can I, in an automatic fashion, extract value from this and interpret this? To make the BeepBase as energy efficient as it is, we decided to work with a low radiation, low energy connection type called LoRa, long range wide area network. And this allows like very little data to send, very small packets. And therefore, we process the sound data on the bee base. It is processed into what you would typically see on an equalizer on a sound system. So it's frequency bands, which are here on the y-axis, which indicates how often this frequency band has been measured in this colony. And the microphone is in the beehive, of course. And what we know, and Frank Linton will also talk about sound a little bit more in the next presentation, is that it is extremely difficult to have a reliable interpretation of sound across different types of hives, different types of materials, the size of the hive, so how many compartments are there, brood boxes, supers, but also the type of colony and other factors. So there is a lot of development ongoing in this respect. And for BEEP, the biggest chunk of the work is actually within the BeeGood research project to basically do an analysis and apply machine learning to connect the observations of the beekeeper with the checklist, with the sound patterns, with raw sound recordings, but also with other sensor values. And that way, discover the patterns that we can use for our prediction model. I have a few words on that in a minute. And there's also on our website, beep.nl, there is a web page describing more information about sound if you want. And please also feel free to contribute, of course. And on the bottom here, regarding these charts, is information on the device regarding the battery voltage and signal strength. So that's all nice, but how do we put it? How do we put this information to value? And actually, the easiest sensor value to work with, and also the most useful one, is the weight. And here on the left-hand side, you see an indication of what weight can be used for. If the chart goes down over time, then, well, the bees are using stock, obviously, but maybe the weather is so bad they're using a lot of stock. Actually, Bas will also talk about this in his presentation regarding floral resources. The second one is about collecting food and what I call the daily pattern. So they fly out in the morning, sometimes depending on the sun also and the time of day, you see a really nice dip of lots of bees flying out at the same time. And coming back with food, or perhaps also with water initially, and then collecting food throughout the day. So you see a bit of a U pattern. Again, this depends on the weather a lot. But of course, if you compare this pattern between hives, you already see an indication which colonies are faring well and which are faring less. The nectar flow is more about, well, a continuous flow over a number of days of food coming in. And nectar, of course, is relatively heavy compared to pollen, for example. And this, of course, is a very nice indication if they're collecting lots of food and whether and when is also a good time to harvest honey, if you want. Robbery is another example. Swarming is another example. A sudden drop of a weight of, let's say, about 2 kilograms. And then, of course, there's also a chart that you don't want to see of the bees being inactive. So basically, these are lots of possibilities to use the data. And this is one of the big enhancements in the last version, the last upgrade of the Beep web app. You don't need to upgrade or download anything. It's a web app, so you always get the latest version. And we call this alerts. So you can set alerts, and when you set an alert, you get notifications.
Stop video audio, die moet ik...
Sorry?
Dat is een beetje overdreven.
Sorry? I can hear somebody speaking, but I'll just continue. So, so many of you also indicated you're curious to know where Beep is moving next, what we are working on. And I'm going to give you one example, but it's a big example. It's an important piece that we're adding. So if we look at what is happening here is that, of course, we're talking about bees, about honeybees, and taking care of those honeybees. And the beekeeper, or beak in short, is the person taking care. And what we've built is a Beep system, which is the third item here. And this system has an app, a web app, but there's a lot happening behind that app. And we call that the backend. So these are 4 components that interact with each other. And at the moment, one of the things you can do is, of course, when you have a bee colony, and let's say you also have a bee base, that you use the Beep app to add a new hive. So here you go, you've created an apiary, you've created a hive. And when you add an apiary, this also allows you to enter a location. And of course, for example, weather information will be extracted from a weather service based on that location. And that Beep base will do measurements, and those measurements will result in data, sensor data, that is also stored in the backend, in the database of Beep. So of course, the beekeeper goes about his or her business and take care of the colony. But when the beekeeper has also used the alerts function on, for example, a swarm, or on a sudden decrease of food reserve, then this can result in an alert, which is triggered in the backend, and which can then be alerted to the beekeeper. And that can be a reason for the beekeeper to take a certain action or to do a certain inspection. Those inspections can then be entered in the Beep software, including observations. I saw the queen, or I saw that the colony is queenless, or maybe actions such as adding a super. And this is all like happening in the moment. So especially also those alerts are based on the past. Looking back, something happens and it triggers an alert. So one of the main things being developed in the Be Good project is to also help the beekeeper much more in terms of using predictions, in using those data in a prediction model to be able to also create warnings. So it works like this. The location that has been entered allows for weather information to be collected, weather forecasts to be collected, but also floral resources. So this is one of the main components of the project as well, regarding the collection and the analysis, and also modeling of floral resources. This is done by the University of Coimbra in Portugal. So these are inputs for the prediction model. Sensor data is an input for the prediction model, as well as observations and actions by the beekeeper. So this is a lot of information that is processed in this modeling. And this modeling basically makes a prediction, does an analysis of the health status of a colony, but also does a prediction how this health status may develop in the future because of these environmental conditions and because of other like intelligence that is processed in this model. So these triggers can cause a warning to be sent through the Beep interface to the beekeeper, and that beekeeper is then warned about something that needs to be checked or something that needs to be done. So this can go hand in hand with an advice. And we summarize that, we call that decision support. And of course, that can then lead the beekeeper to take care. So maybe a bit of a busy overview, but I do think it's important to also share with you what is already possible with setting alerts. You can use it now, and also what we are working on in a more advanced, in a very advanced way in terms of helping beekeepers to take care and to take care at the right moment. And this, of course, also helps to be able to do less inspections. So finally, a word on the Beep platform and how you can use it for your application or how you can contribute. So you can create your own research on the Beep platform. There are already a bunch of researchers there, and this basically means that you can work with beekeepers to collect their data, or ask beekeepers to give consent to use their data. And we also have a collaboration feature. So then basically you work with a group and everybody can see each other's data, or even edit each other's data if you want. You can also build systems, and Beelogger is a great example of that, of building and tweaking your own system, doing experiments, and also write code. And on the beep.nl website, you find links to open hardware and GitHub regarding the code. Then there are 9 languages at the moment in the interface, and it is possible to also contribute to the addition of new languages. And also this is a call for you to share your experiences in the forum. Again, through the beep.nl homepage, you can find the forum, and there are already, I think, about 15 subjects that are being shared there. One of the interesting things, for example, is working with antennas to maybe, if your signal connection is not great, to consider, for example, working with an external antenna. But then we're very curious which antenna works for you, and how we can also then feed that back to the further product development of the Beep platform.